Is this Jeremy?
Yes.
Hi.
How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well.
All right.
How you guys doing?
We're fine. We're fine.
Not bad.
That's great. I really enjoyed the show.
Thanks.
And I want to kind of say, you had made a comment about earlier about I've been on hold for so long.
It's okay.
You made
Would it have been about the modern science in the Bible?
Yeah, you had made a comment about God being not revealing.
Actually, I made a comment that none of those claims of God's revealing things revealed information that was relevant.
Right, and you were saying, why didn't God reveal whatever back in the day and whatever back in the day?
Yeah, well, we were talking about people claiming that, for example, modern scientific concepts have actually been present in the Bible for 2,000 years. And my response to that is, well, why then weren't those principles being studied and applied to daily life if they were revealed there?
I would say that it goes back to the idea of Adam and Eve and the fruit of knowledge. That fruit of knowledge was pursued by man, okay, and man went with his knowledge, and God would reveal his ultimate truth, and had God, well, I just wanted to make the quick point that had God revealed his science or math or whatever to humans when they weren't able to conceive it, it might appear as magic, and it might misconvey God's message.
Well, but God being omnipotent and all-knowing and all-understanding ought to have it perfectly within his skill set to explain those things to people in such a way that it was very easy for them to comprehend and wouldn't be terrifying and magical and strange and frightening.
Or kind of like a God that's terrible and magic and frightening and strange.
Or, yeah.
Why is that a problem?
Yeah,
I mean, first of all, even if we were to go with your biblical concept, it wasn't the tree of knowledge. It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It wasn't about knowledge and understanding that supposedly came from that tree within the bounds of Christianity. It was an understanding of right and wrong. So, I mean, the tree thing, doesn't even address the issue. But if the concern is that if God were to reveal something to people who weren't quite ready to understand it, well, why didn't God make them able to understand it?
Because that would be spoon feeding, and that wouldn't be growth. That would be like a robot, building a robot.
How's that like building a robot? By making people, if God created the entire world, let's say this morning, intact with all of the information that we currently have, how is that building robots?
And how is it any more building a robot than to do what he actually is said to have done, which is, lay out a list of do's and don'ts, and if you do the do's, you're okay, and if you do any of the don'ts, you're condemned, damned, whatever. That to me, just setting together, a world, putting people in it, and saying, "I am your God. Here are my rules. You must obey me. If you eat from this, eat the fruit of this tree, oops, you did it. Well, there you go. You're cast out. That's to me, that seems a heck of a lot more like, trying to create robots, because you're saying, oh, well, obey me and you'll be fine. Disobey me and you won't. Whereas creating the people that you create in such a way as to where you can explain them to things to them, have them achieve an intellectual understanding of it, have them ask questions, have them learn, maybe try to have them apply their own knowledge to new discoveries. That doesn't seem to me anything like trying to create a robot.
And somebody
quite the opposite, in fact.
And somebody in the control room wanted to point out, so telling people to wash their hands before they eat would have freaked them out? They don't have to have a complete and absolute understanding of everything, but if God came to Adam and Eve or whoever in those early days when he was supposedly revealing so much and said, hey, you know what, when I was making you guys, I also created these little monsters that live on stuff and eat on decaying food, so make sure your food's fresh and that your hands are clean before you eat, and this will kind of keep you more healthy. How much understanding do you have to grasp that?
Well, the idea of bacteria is kind of ludicrous, only because had God told an archaic human, about bacteria, it would become mysticism because you can't see it, because the understanding of very
Well, you
small
can't see
than
God, you
think.
can't see heaven, you can't see hell, and yet these are all beliefs that were promulgated and expected to be adhered to. There's lots of things that religion
But
asks
they're
you to do.
governing beliefs.
No. I cannot.
The idea of
How's that
bacteria
in it?
wouldn't be governing.
Well, how is it not? I mean,
If you look at the idea of boils and pestilence, he in fact did bring up the idea of bacteria. With the idea of boils, you'll be stricken with boils. He didn't say they were made of little tiny organisms, but he said don't do this, otherwise you'll be stricken with boils.
Well, then why is it okay to insist that people believe in the unseen and the unknowable and the unprovable if they're governing beliefs, as opposed to if they're it not being okay if they're not governing beliefs? I don't get the distinction there, or that that has any bearing on anything.
The misconception you guys are coming from is that God came down and wrote the Bible with his own mighty hand.
No, actually, we don't believe in a God at all.
You're saying that. With your argument, you're saying that. I'm saying that each little individual thing were revealed to man, and man wrote it down. So man didn't have the concept of bacteria back then. Man didn't have the concept.
And if God is revealing things to people, which is what you believe, why wouldn't he reveal things that were useful and true?
And he has revealed that. We got electricity. Do you think that...
Whoa. What did God reveal
about electricity?
It's God gave man his mind, and...
So therefore everything we learn and discover God gets credit for because he gave us a brain. Is that not the weakest argument ever? Hey, here's the thing. If we use that reasoning, then it's God's fault. It's God's fault that we didn't live up to his expectations. So he's unjust to blame us.
There's another element there, and comes in the curse and fall of man.
Yes.
With the seeking of knowledge.
So seeking knowledge is bad.
Well, no,
even though a minute ago you said...
It's not bad. It'll reach to the same ends, but it's a different means. We could have, in the hypothetical garden, we could have chose not to eat of the fruit and just been in a euphoria with God. Or we could have eaten the fruit and been given the knowledge of good and evil and had to go in the highways and byways of that. Either way, you would reach the same end.
Well, if we reach the same end, then what's the point?
Yeah, and why did God go to all that trouble to make those ridiculous rules and then condemn Adam and Eve for eating of that fruit and cast them out of his garden?
What you just said was we'd reach the same end. You're saying that the course of history would reach the same end, whether people ate the fruit or not. So you're saying that original sin is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, not really, because original sin is only relevant to the sinners themselves.
No.
I need the cow.
Take the cow.
Yeah.
You can't say that we'd reach the same end and not say that it's not irrelevant. What the hell are you saying?
I'm just... Yeah.
I mean, what is your particular belief about God? And how does this...
Well, we're not trying to be rude, man. We're just trying to get to where you're heading with this. That's all.
I understand.
Yeah,
God created everything.
Okay.
God created everything, and he...
But the question is... The question is the importance of knowledge. Why it's more important to think that our knowledge comes from God and what God has either designed or allowed us to comprehend intellectually, or and whether that's better or whether it is better for human beings to have pursued their own knowledge about the world. And I think that's what we're trying to...
Well, that would depend again on your perspective of what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
Where does that perspective on what's good and what's bad come from?
That perspective would be from the result of your knowledge. If you were to seek empirical knowledge, like you were saying, and if you were, if you have math and all that stuff, then of course the result is going to be more empirical knowledge, and you'll be able to sort through what is right and what's wrong. The bad knowledge would come from if your premise was wrong, then you would end up naturally with an aspect of bad knowledge somewhere in your lot. You know what I mean? So,
well, yeah, if you believe things that are false, then typically you will not have good experience. And
that's the trouble with religion, is because religion itself, depending on what religion you go through, there are universal truths in many religions, and very coinciding truths in,
like what?
In pretty much all religions.
Well, I think he means like
the
common
idea of goodness,
beliefs.
the idea of happiness. You know, you have the idea of love.
Yeah, but what is it about? I mean, yes, religion contains things in it that are true in the sense that you're talking about, that we love, we care, we experience. But those things, I mean, to borrow one of Russell's themes again, you can find those themes in comic books like Spider-Man. What is it about? There's nothing intrinsic to the religion that makes it true. Religion is talking about human nature, reality, and those areas where it's consistent with reality. Yeah, of course those are truths. I'm talking about whether or not a God exists, what evidence there is for this. I mean, you believe, what you started to say earlier, is that not only does God exist, but he created everything. Now, why would you believe that?
Just because it is, and I can't explain it. So you need I need a higher, you know.
I think what you
guys, it seems just hopeless. It seems more of a decaying perspective. Having the idea that we're just on a rock and we're just observing science unfold.
Oh, I don't see anything hopeless about that.
Well,
to me, that's an
hopeless.
adventure.
It makes me anxious thinking.
I think what I'm getting from you, I mean, just reading between the lines of the things that you're saying, is that you have simply developed these beliefs because they've been things that you've been brought up with. They're part of your culture. They're part of your upbringing and what you've been raised in. And I think that you have really only just recently started thinking about them or trying to think about them, which is why in this call that we've been having with you, your thoughts have really come across being very, very unformed, like you're just sort of trying to puzzle it all out, live on the line with us. And that's good, that's fine. But what I'd encourage you to do, if you want to call us back and talk to us anytime in the future, think about this stuff ahead of time, maybe try to write some ideas down, and get some sort of a linear flow going on there, because I think that what's happening is you keep running into stumbling blocks. Matt will bring up a question, and there'll be a long pause, and you'll be thinking about it.
It's 2-on-1 right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
it isn't even really that. I think that Jeremy is really trying to think through his beliefs, and this is probably a new thing for you, and that's great. But just to sum all this up, what I was trying to say earlier was pertaining to the fact that a lot of religions, especially Christianity, try to make specific claims about what their God does and doesn't do, what their God has and has not revealed, simply so that God can get the credit for whatever good is going on in the world. But if you look at it just in a straightforward, from a factual perspective, you can say, well, if, for example, say the scientific knowledge that is available to us now in the 20th century, if all of that information was in fact in the Bible in some sort of arcane and in coded form all this time, then why wouldn't God have been perhaps a little bit more clear about it? I mean, for example, there could have been hundreds of millions of lives saved in the 14th century with the Black Death. If the idea of, we were talking earlier, bacteria, these little germs, the germ theory of disease, if those people had known about that then, instead of us having to get almost all the way through the 19th century before that was a proven thing, a lot of misery and strife and suffering could have been saved for the human race if that had been known. So I think that what you see a lot of times in religion with believers,
it may not have been addressed in the Bible.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to. I was just trying to explain. I was responding to a certain claim that I've heard some Christians make, and trying to say, based on my observations, that claim can't really be true. I think you're just taking credit for the modern knowledge that we have through the very human intellectual pursuit of science and what have you. And then they take that and then they try to give their Bible and their God credit for it when that isn't really justified. That was really all of that what I was getting to. But look, I encourage you to think through your beliefs more and try to sort of get some flow going and call us back in the future.
And on that note, I gotta let you go, Jeremy, because we actually do have full lines again. But please do call back, and there's more points to discuss it. Part of the problem is that we get so kind of scattershot, broad. I mean, we covered all kinds of things in there. And really, it was just about, well, why didn't God reveal this? Well, there's plenty of other questions that we could ask for people who have serious beliefs in things like the Bible about why God, according to their beliefs, did this or didn't do this. And, it's like, well, why isn't there a commandment saying thou shalt not enslave thy fellow man? Why isn't there one against, book burning or the challenging ideas? How much did we lose when Christians, religionists, went after the Library of Alexander, where we had to... This was before knowledge was stored in a way where it was fairly safe.
And I thought the Muslims had a little bit of a... I thought the Muslims had to have to take a little bit of the Alexandria credit too, don't they?
No.
Who or was it? Who was it? Who did that to
Muslims
Alexandria?
didn't exist. It was Christians.